My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hey y'all, I'm so glad it's finally time to film this video. I guess that you could say that this is the second in a 2-video series, a diptych if you will, because I did film a video exactly halfway through the year, ranking everything I had purchased with my budget in the first half of the year. And when I filmed that video, I had spent almost all of my budget that was allotted to me in the first half of the year. There was $50 that I hadn't spent at that point that rolled over to the second half of the year. And in the second half of the year, I spent all of it, that $50, plus everything that was allotted to the second half of the year, plus $7. I went $7 over budget right at the end, which you will already know if you watched my recent video about how I spent my budget in December. Compiling the data for this video and stacking it up against the data from the first video was fascinating and gratifying, and it really showed me that my budget as a project revealed myself to me, helped me grow. I am able to see the way in which I grew, and I also feel like checking in halfway through the year with that first video helped me to grow. It was about budgeting, but it was also about keeping track of my budgeting and then looking back over what I had spent, what I had bought, reassessing my desires, and then paying attention and applying that information as I moved forward. The evolution is very clear and it's pretty spectacular. I'm so excited to share it with you. So I'm going to be talking about everything I bought with my budget in the second half of the year, and I'm going to structure it the same way I did the first video. I'm going to talk about my true loves, my absolute favorites, my joys, which are things that I'm still glad I bought but that didn't make it into favorites, the unexciting, decent things that I bought with my budget, and then the last 2 categories are true regrets and things that have already been decluttered. So I am going to make my way through all of those 5 categories just like I did the first time, but the results are dramatically different. The way things broke down in terms of number, in terms of funds, the second half of the year looked really different from the first half of the year. So as I go through, I will be comparing, I'll be referencing that other video, and of course, you already know that the link to that video will be right at the top of the description box down below this one. If you didn't see that video before when I posted it 6 months ago, it might be fun actually to pause this video and go watch that one and then return to this one. If you did see that one back when I posted it, if you were already following me then I actually do recommend that as subsidiary viewing. Like after you watch this one, checking back in with that one might be entertaining. In any case, this is going to be the thing, which is ranking everything that I bought with my budget in the second half of the year, but it's also going to be a bit of a reflection on the way that the second half of the year stacks up against the first half of the year and what I make of that and all my feelings. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So my beauty budget in the year of 2019 covered makeup, skincare, and clothing, including replacements. So if I had to replace my bras, which I did in the first half of the year, if I had to replace my concealer, then I had to take that out of my budget. It also covered the kinds of homewares that I tend to compulsively buy because I think that our home needs to be better. We did make some joint homewares decisions this year, some joint homewares purchases. Case in point, we needed bowls because Joe had broken all of our bowls, and so when I replaced our bowls judiciously and in consultation with my partner, that cost didn't come out of my budget. But if I were to be like, I think we need a new rug in the entryway, even though we'd been living without a rug for months and it had been fine, I just suddenly felt like my identity wouldn't be complete if we didn't have a rug in our entryway, then that would have had to come out of my beauty budget. My budget was $200 a month. It was designed to give me a little bit of wiggle room to feel my oats and curate my life and feel that sense of joy. And I also wanted to give myself room to explore shopping again. On the heels of my no-buy year, I needed to have space to kind of refashion my relationship with shopping. And my beauty budget in many ways was the budget that I set aside for that process. It was also designed, in addition to giving me that wiggle room, to keep me from backsliding into my pre-no-buy year behaviors. So it was a little bit roomy, but the walls of it were very strict. In the first half of the year, as you may remember if you've seen that other video, I spent almost exactly half of my yearly budget, so $1,150 of the $1,200 that I could have spent up to that point. So in the second half of the year, I spent pretty much half as well, a little more than half, roughly $1,250. So I spent a little bit more money in the second half of the year technically, but relative to the overall size of the budget, it was pretty much half and half. I essentially spent the same amount of money in the first half of the year as I spent in the second half of the year. And here is the gag. Here is the crazy thing, the thing that knocked my socks off. I'm dropping the big one on you right here at the beginning of the video. This is something I'd been wondering about, but I hadn't done the math at all. I hadn't counted anything up. If you watched that other video recently, or if you have a good memory, you may remember that in the first half of the year, with that nearly $1,200, I purchased roughly 60 things. I counted everything up, and by number, there were about 60 items. I spent $1,200 on about 60 items, 60 beautiful things and staple things. In the second half of the year, I bought 30 items with the same amount of money, even a tiny bit more amount of money. Half of the number of items in the second half of the year. That is such a dramatic shift in behavior. I don't want it to go unsaid that the second half of the year did bring a slight uptick in the amount of PR that I was processing because of my YouTube channel. It's partly because as the channel grows, it gets more attention, more offers of free stuff to review, and that did happen to me a bit, but also, and I actually think maybe primarily, it's because I became closer friends in the second half of the year with some influencers who live in my area. We've been hanging out a lot and we've been exchanging stuff, exchanging PR. So my friend Simbri, who has a flourishing Instagram account, my friend Lauren, who has a YouTube channel, they get some stuff in PR that's really great, and they think of me, they don't want to keep stuff, and then they give it to me and they're like, do you want to try this? Do you want to review it? And much of the time I'm like, yes, thank you. I would love to review that, especially if it's a situation where I'm running low on mascara and Simbri happens to have a mascara that she got in PR that she's not using. And because of that, there have been certain staple items that I haven't had to buy in the second half of the year. This was barely true in the first half of the year. And I did make a whole video about the effect of PR on my budget, tracking it really down to the last dollar, about halfway through the year, maybe a little more than halfway through the year. And at that point, there had been about a $200 alleviation of my spending because of PR. It may have increased a little bit in the second half of the year. So I'm bringing it up here because I can definitely account for some of that shift from having purchased 60 items to having purchased 30 items with my budget with PR. But when I rack my brains, I can't think of more than a couple of things that I was saved from buying by PR. So mascara is definitely one, maybe oil cleanser, second cleanser, those kinds of things. Shampoo is definitely one. So I can think of 4 or 5 off the top of my head, and there might be a couple more than that. But there definitely aren't enough to account for the fact that I purchased a full half as many items in the second half of the year as I did in the first half of the year. In my estimation, the drama of the change in my buying behavior, the extreme nature of the change, is due to a shift in perspective that happened, honestly, when I filmed that first video halfway through the year. Looking at what I had bought, 60 items, sitting myself down halfway through the year and looking at the fact that I had bought 60 items with my budget, and then ranking them and realizing that there were a lot of them that just didn't measure up in terms of excitement. There were things that I wished I hadn't bought. There were a number of things I had already decluttered. Forcing myself to look at all of that data, to look at those things and to look at how much money they had cost when I put them all together, it just made me much more judicious moving forward. So let's look at the actual numbers. I'm going to start with my true loves, my favorites. And in the favorite section, I actually have ranked everything. So in the favorite section, there are 11 items. And this is another gag. This is crazy. 11 items, and they added up to $851 of my budget in the second half of the year. That's the majority. That's more than half of the budget I had to spend. So I spent more than half of my budget in the second half of the year on just the 11 things that ended up being my favorite choices, my favorite purchases. And I think that's great. I wish it had been more. I wish I had spent $1,000 in the second half of the year on just 8 things that had been my favorite. You see where I'm going with this? But that was the trend, because halfway through the year, my True Loves favorites section included 14 things more. So I had more things that I considered to be my favorite, but of course I had purchased more things overall. And they added up to just $375. So close to a third, less than a third, but in the second half of the year, I spent more than half of my budget on those top items. So you can start to see how I've become better at concentrating the spending money that I've given myself at the top into the things that I'm going to end up loving the most and keep loving the most. And I've also gotten better at concentrating those funds there, but not causing that to mean that I buy tons and tons and tons of things. Fewer, nicer things. That's the trend that you can actually see here if you look at both sets of data. So my 11 favorites are almost all clothing items, which is another thing that really tells me something. It's really interesting. And the top 3 are, I think, the 3 most expensive things that I've purchased in the year. And they are the 3 kind of standout clothing purchases of the year, if you ask me, and definitely of the second half of the year. So my number 1 item, as you probably have already guessed if you've been watching me, is the ruffled blouse. It's just far and away my favorite thing. I feel like it's just the queen purchase of the year. It was the moment. Like, that was the month I was at my best as someone budgeting for beautiful things, when I only pretty much bought the one thing and I spent more than a month's budget on it, felt amazing about it, and just still fills me with absolute warmth and joy whenever I think about it. To me, it is just chef's kiss, the creme de la creme of the beauty budget year. So it's an Ulla Johnson ruffled blouse. I purchased it on Poshmark. It was secondhand, and I bought it for $230. It originally retailed, I think, for $550. If I had purchased it at some point new from the Ulla Johnson website, that's what I would have paid, but I paid $230 off my budget. So right at the top, in the number 1 spot, is the fanciest, most extra, and the most expensive thing. The second and third things, I struggled. They like flip-flopped. I couldn't figure out which one to put first. I ended up putting the Paloma wool sweater, the one with the face on it, that I actually wore recently in one of my declutter videos, which I think you will have already seen. And then the third item is my jeans from A Gold that have the ripped knees, the black high-waist, loose 90s fit jeans with the ripped knees. I've worn them so much. They're almost my number 1 most used item that I've purchased with my budget. I said that in another video, and one of you reminded me in the comments about the Rowan shadows, and you are right. I think that sort of day for day, wear for wear, I've used the Rowan shadows more. I've worn them more often than I've worn those jeans. But in terms of clothing, those jeans are definitely the most worn thing. And so in many ways, like the smartest buy, if you're looking at it from a practical point of view, instead of from a fuchsia ruffled eyelet lace point of view. So the gold jeans I put in the 3rd spot. I think I ranked the Paloma wool sweater above them just because it's newer, and so it's feeling a little bit more extra exciting to me, but those are definitely the 2nd and 3rd ones. So we have the ruffled blouse, the Paloma wool sweater, the gold jeans. The Paloma wool sweater I bought for $133, and the gold jeans I bought for $188. So you can start to see why so much of my budget is concentrated right here at the top. And it's not just true overall, even within these 11 things. The top 3 are, I think, the most expensive. Yeah, they are. One way to interpret that is to say that I tend to place a higher premium on things that are expensive and to value things that are expensive. And I think that there is something to be said for that. I think when you spend a lot of money on something, you tend to treat it more with kid gloves. You tend to feel like it was more special because you want to believe that it was worth the resources that you gave in exchange for it. But another way of looking at it is that I place a premium on having concentrated my assets into things that feel more densely special to me. And so things that are really unique and different, like the top 2, the blouse and the sweater, I was willing to pay the amount because I felt like they had these qualities, not necessarily their cost, but just these other qualities, these aesthetic qualities that would make them more special to me. So that is another way of looking at why the top 3 things are also the priciest things, because I was just willing. When I was looking and I was researching, I was willing to spread my wings a little bit in terms of what I would spend if I found things that were the most special. So let's bust through the rest of the 11 things. I can already tell that this video is going to be super long, but of course it is, because I'm touching on all 30 things that I bought with my budget and all of my feelings. In 4th place, I've put the Rowan quad and the single. So that purchase from Rowan for me was a smash hit. It was so fun to do an unboxing and first impressions on my channel. I don't usually do things like that, but that was just like the perfect moment, the perfect storm. It was a really fun video to make, and they have proved to be the most useful, practical, just gently glamorous makeup items that I maybe own. I mean, really smash hit, knocked it out of the park with the formulation, and I feel like I knocked it out of the park with that purchase. It wasn't inexpensive. The two items together cost $71, so that was getting close to half of my budget for the month in which I bought them, but they were totally worth it. Then I have all the clothes I bought this month, I think is all of them. Yeah. So the oversized hoodie dress, I am so in love with it. And it's one of those things that when I made the purchase, I purchased 4 things at COS, 3 tops and that oversized hoodie dress. And then I proceeded to wear that oversized hoodie dress literally every day after I made the purchase until I had to wash it. And then I started wearing the other tops. So it's like very, very clearly the home run. So that's next on the list. And then I actually didn't put the long sleeve tops from COS after that. What I put were the jeans that I bought at the vintage shop. So the really high-waisted jeans that have the loose legs, those blue jeans that I talked about in that video. They were a total score. And I think I'm really excited about them, extra excited because they were only $16. So the hoodie dress was $88, the vintage jeans were $16. And after that, I put the other 4 tops. So the 3 from COS that I talked about in that video, and then the striped top from Aritzia with the turtleneck. And I do think that some of these clothing items may have made it into my most favorites because they're new, again, because they're really fresh to me. And so I feel like they're my favorite things that I've purchased. The 3 at the top and the Rowan quads, so those top 4, they have definitely been here long enough for me to know that they're in the right spots. They are really forever and away. My favorite 4 things that I bought in the second half of the year, or my favorite 5 things, if you count the Rowan, the 2 items from Rowan, each as individually 2 things. And then these other clothing items then I kind of squeaked into the top tier just because they're so exciting and they're so new. But I don't know, maybe they would have made it in if I had waited 6 months and then made this video, because I do feel like all of those are really good buys. And also there's this practical side of me that just feels so glad that I have finally beefed out the long sleeve sort of multiple types of weather appropriate tops section of my wardrobe, and that I did it without buying just another plain black top, because all of the other ones that fit into that category were just plain black. So part of me just feels like, yes, like I did it. And I feel like that part, the practical part of the excitement about that purchase, isn't going to die. So those are my top 11 items. 9 items of clothing, and then the 2 pieces of makeup from Rowan. And together they add up to $851. And one thing that's interesting is that for me, 9 really beautiful and useful pieces of clothing, a few of which were very inexpensive, like the $16 jeans and the $20 top and were on sale, and then a few of which were very expensive and high end, like the $230 blouse, the $188 jeans. Putting all of those together and having there be 9 of them, and having had those add up to about $750 if you remove the Rowan quad, I just feel a sense of balance about that. And that makes me really happy, because before this year, I've never had a sense of balance about my decision-making process when it has come to buying clothes, because I love fashion so much and it's something that I historically did compulsively. Halfway through my no-buy year, I got rid of like half my wardrobe because I was just like, this is insane. And all of those things, all of the things that I consigned and sold and donated and gave away halfway through my no-buy year, all of that stuff was stuff that I had just acquired and acquired and acquired and acquired because I was such an out-of-control spender. I didn't have a sense of proportions and a sense of balance about acquiring clothing to don. Clothing with which to adorn my body is, I think, what I was trying to say. Let's move on to talking about the next section. So the joys. This is a tricky section for me because it's bloated numerically, but in terms of how much it cost, it's way, way less than the top section. So there are 17 items that I've been considering joys, things that theoretically I'm glad that I purchased. I don't think that they were bad purchases. They just didn't end up being my favorites. And together they added up to $369. So again, nearly a third of my budget for the second half of the year. And to be honest, I wish this category was smaller. Again, I wish I had spent $1,000 in my top category. And I wish some of the things from this category were moved up into that category. Or maybe I had not bought 3 or 4 of these things and instead purchased one like $300 thing that would be at the very top of the list, like an amazing handbag I've had my eye on or something like that. I look at this list and In theory, I'm glad I purchased all of these things, but when I look at the numbers and I look at the money, I wish that I had gone a different route when choosing how to spend. So that's so instructive to me. That's so helpful. Anyway, here are the items. At the top of the list, the Lisa Eldridge lipstick that I bought for $33.55. That almost made it into the top category, but it just didn't. I just don't feel that way about it. I think it's great. It's a staple. I'm glad I bought it. I think maybe it's partly because I have so many lip products that didn't make it in. It might also be because it's makeup. And to be totally frank with you, I know that this will make a lot of sense to some of you and some of you might hate it, but I'm just over trying to like anticipate what people think and like only say the right thing. I'm just telling the truth. To be totally honest, getting a lot of makeup for free makes makeup feel less special. And in some ways that makes me a really good reviewer because my standards have gotten really high. For makeup to excite me, it has to be really, really special. In some ways that makes me a less vibrant member of the beauty community because I used to be so excitable surrounding makeup. And at this point I'm just like, even one I bought myself, even one by Lisa Eldridge, as amazing as it is, my perfect nude, that matte, the formula, the velvet, the packaging, Lisa, like everything about it is as glamorous and amazing as it could be. And I'm really glad that I bought it. And still, it didn't make it into my list of tippy-toppy favorites. And I think that that's because of a degree of makeup fatigue on my part that is blighting me after only 1 year of receiving PR. And there are people on this platform who have been receiving PR in much, much greater quantities than I ever have for years. And for me, I received a little bit of PR for the first 6 months of this year, a bit more for the second half of this year. And already I'm kind of like, a lipstick is a lipstick is a lipstick. And the reason I feel that way is because of PR. So I'll be addressing that a little bit more, I think, maybe in my intro video for next year, maybe towards the beginning of next year, but thought I'd just throw it in here because I thought about it when I realized that that Lisa Eldridge lipstick wasn't going to make it into my tippy-toppy faves, but it is at the top of my list of joys. And then comes all the other makeup that I bought myself. The JD Glow shadows that I bought for $17.50. There were, I think, 3 or 4 of them, the Galaxy shadows. The M Cosmetics lipsticks, I bought 2 of them for $40. The Build My Own palette from ColourPop and the one blush stick that I bought from ColourPop, that was a $30 order. The L'Oreal Color Riche Shine in Dazzling Dough, which is kind of like a grayish color. All of those are grouped together at the very top of my list of joys. I don't think at this point I'd give any of them back. I'm not sorry I bought them. I use them all. I love them all. And buying them and opening them or bringing them home and reviewing them and wearing them on my channel, all of that brought me a lot of joy at the time and then kind of continued to bring me joy over time. So I don't regret, they're not in my regrets. I don't regret them. What am I talking about? Of course I don't. They're at the top of my list of joys. It's just, I think that I've gotten really picky. I think I want almost everything to be a tippy-toppy favorite. So I'm looking at these very joyful joys and I'm like, I see you, M Cosmetics lipsticks that I bought. I understand why I did that, but maybe not again. Maybe not next year. Maybe next year I'll be saving that $40 and holding out for something kind of bigger and better. So still in the joys section, things I'm really glad I bought, but below all of that makeup, I've placed the House of Glory order. So I ordered a perfume and some soap from House of Glory. That was just now. That was like just in December. I love the stuff that I got. I'm really glad that I got it. They definitely bring me joy, those things. But there's something about the fact that the soap and even to some degree the perfume are use upable. Like I'm going to use them up and blow through them. One of the things of soap, I've already used it up. And so it's just hard for me to like get it up about it at this point because it's like already half gone, that thing. So that was another thing I filed away to talk about. Then at the bottom of the list of joys are other clothes that I purchased that I just don't love as much right now or didn't end up loving as much. So that t-shirt that I got at Target that says Easy Tiger, it's great. It's in my wardrobe. I'm going to wear it to bits. I'm going to wear it all the time. And I'm really glad that I bought it. It was just sort of a semi-practical purchase and it doesn't really ring my bell in the way that some of those really, really interesting and cozy and beautifully made long sleeve tops do. At some point towards the beginning of the second half of the year, I bought 2 tops at Aritzia and I guess I just don't love them as much as I thought I would. It just feels like a little bit of a ho-hum purchase to me at this point. There was the sweater from Theory that I bought for $40 when I was at the consignment shop in DC. I like it. I just don't love, love, love it. I'm glad that I have it. I wear it all the time. I just don't love, love, love it. Go figure. This is very interesting. The linen fox pants. So the top of my list, at the very top of my list of 60 things that I purchased in the first half of the year was my pair of black wide leg, full length linen fox pants. These custom linen pants that I purchased from Linen Fox. They were far and away my favorite thing that I purchased in the first half of the year, and still are. I think if you were to ask me like now, Hannah, if you look at everything you purchased in the first half of the year, what's your favorite? They'd still be my favorite. I understand why they were my favorite in that video. And I was loving on them so much that after I made that video, you can kind of see my logic. I was like, okay, Hannah, you're learning about yourself. You're looking at the things you bought. You're talking it over with yourself. And so you loved these pants more than anything. Don't you think it would be the smartest thing to do to buy another pair of those pants? Don't you think that would be the best use of $93? And I was like, yeah, totally would. So what I did was I bought another pair of those pants in a different color, like a sort of a peachy color. And they're down here at the bottom of the joys. I wear them. I love them. I'm glad that I have them. I'm glad that I bought them. I just don't think it's a good idea to buy something on the premise that you already bought it and you really, really liked it the first time. That has never worked out for me. I'm saying you, but what I mean is when I'm in this situation, I should just keep cherishing the first thing and just love the one that I have. And I really learned that lesson with the second pair of linen fox pants. And then at the very bottom of my list of joys, the faux leather Zara pants that I bought from Poshmark. I knew that I was going to love them because they are the same pants that I had purchased new from Zara in their season, which was like 3 or 4 years ago. So I tracked down the exact same pants in my exact same size in a different color, and I purchased them. But here's the thing. The reason I wanted to replace mine was because they were starting to peel, like the faux leather was just starting to crack and peel a little bit. And I thought it was because I had worn mine to bits. I had worn them so many times, and I was like, these are worn out. I'm going to replace them. So I found a pair that was pretty much new with tags, like brand new, not worn. You could tell it was like in gorgeous condition, the pair of pants, when it arrived. And as soon as I started wearing them, they started to crack and peel too. And it sucks, but I realized that it must just be the age of the fabric. It must be that all of the pants, the entire lot, were new at the time, and that over the course of 3 years, whether they've been worn or just been sitting somewhere in someone's closet, that material has degraded. And it's disappointing because both of my pairs of faux leather pants from Zara are almost unwearable because big pieces are peeling and cracking off of both of those pairs. And it's weird because the first pair, the pair I bought new, that didn't start happening until this year. So I love those pants. In theory, it was a really good purchase. And the thing that made them disappointing and that's going to make me have to get rid of them really soon, it's kind of like out of my control and it's not really relative to my decision-making process. So for that reason, I still consider them a joy. It was still a purchase that brought me joy, and to me, it was still a smart purchase, but it didn't end up being one that contributed all that much value to the rest of my life. So those pants were $20 on Poshmark. It's just like a bit of a ho-hum category for me. The next category underneath that, there are only 5 items in it, and they add up to only $37.99. So these are like the replacement type things. So toothpaste, micellar water, deodorant, texturizing shears for trimming my own bangs, and lash glue. Those are the 5 items that I spent $37.99 on, the 5 unexciting, decent things. And in a weird way, I feel less conflicted about this category because these things, they're not my favorites. I just bought them because I had to. And that makes them kind of more complete to me in terms of my decision-making process. It's this section of joys, these things that I did get some joy out of, just maybe not as much joy. This is the thing. Maybe not as much joy as I could have gotten from my budget if I had just held myself back, saved it a little more, and not frittered it away at all. Not on a ColourPop order, not on 2 M Cosmetics lipsticks, not on 1 drugstore color reshine. Like if I just hadn't done any of that frittering, and not even on like 2 tops at Aritzia or 1 little t-shirt at Target, if I just not done any frittering, then the very top category favorites would be so much more robust, even more robust than it is. And this category would be thinner, and I would prefer that. But I don't mind 5 unexciting, decent things that I had to purchase for about $40. I don't mind that at all. And here's another kicker. Big shock for me when I started going through all of this. The 4th category in the first video was true regrets. Things that I truly regretted buying. And there were 7 items in that category, 7 things that I truly regretted buying in the first half of the year. So halfway through the year, I looked back over the preceding 6 months and I was like, yeah, I bought these 7 things that I regret. That seems a little bit bananas to me now. I can't believe that I bought something and regretted it so shortly after. And now, in this half of the year, I don't have any regrets. Isn't that wild? There's nothing that I truly consider a regret. There are, as I was saying, some things in the joys that I kind of think I could have gotten more joy out of if I had just played my cards a little differently. But I don't regret the acquisition of any of those things. And I don't really regret the action of purchasing them. It's just got me thinking about what I could have done differently. But, you know, the regrets in the first video were like these fake nails that messed up my nails, these Lush toothy tabs that I just ended up feeling like were really bad value for money, a ColourPop lipstick that I just bought, a couple ColourPop things that I kind of just bought because I was like, I want to buy things, and it just ended up being icky. That shimmer veil set from Cover FX that I bought when I was having a bad day, those were the regrets in the first half of the year, and I didn't really do any of that in this half of the year. That is cool. There is one thing in the very last category, which is already decluttered stuff. I don't feel that bad about it. It's the other color reshine. So I bought Dazzling Dough, and I also bought Glossy Fawn. Is that what it's called? Glossy Fawn, the fawn colored one. And I thought that it would be the more natural, the one that was easier to wear, and it just ended up not quite being the right shade of nude for me. And that's fine. That's the kind of thing, like a drugstore lipstick in a color that promises to work for you and then just isn't quite the right undertone. That's the kind of thing that I don't beat myself up about it. I'm actually glad that I went ahead and decluttered it. That was a $7 item. I feel better about it being in the already decluttered category than I would about having it in the like true regrets category, because I don't know if I necessarily regret buying it. I understand why I did it. I don't feel like it was a bad decision. I just also understand why I've already gone ahead and decluttered it. So let's talk about the takeaways for me, the things that I really learned from going through this exercise, and especially from stacking it up against the first time I went through this exercise. Basically, I've gotten way better at knowing what I like, at knowing in advance of buying it what I will like. A much, much larger percentage of my budget went towards things that ended up being my true loves. And at the same time, there are fewer things in that category. So this means that the kind of abstract idea that I'm always tossing around of fewer, nicer things is really working for me. It's really playing out, and you can kind of see it in retrospect. That tenet is holding water for me, not just in the moment, but over time. So the nicer things that I have acquired have retained their emotional and their psychological value for me even months after the fact. Takeaway number 2, buying repeats of favorites isn't a good idea. So the Linen Fox pants are the case in point. And it's also why I decided not to buy the other Rowan quad at any point. It seems like it would have been a natural thing to do, but that was why I was just like, I'm going to stick with the one that I bought for myself that I love. I did just get it as a gift, and I just feel like that's way, way better, because I don't feel this kind of like expectation that my relationship with the second one will be the same as it was with the first one, and that there will be the same kind of explosions in the sky. I feel like when you receive something as a gift, it's a little bit different. You feel like you got the chance to try it without investing, like with no stakes or no expectations. And I'm really excited that I have it, and it's going to be really fun to use it. I think that if I had gone out and purchased it, I would have done it hoping that everything would go the same way it had gone when I had purchased the first one. And as I learned with the pants, it just doesn't work out that way for me. I don't think it would have. I think it almost never does, which is weird. You would think that you could learn from the things that you like the most, and that buying the thing that you like the most again would be the wisest choice. And I've just learned this year that for me at least, it's not. In a weird way, I think the instinct to do that is connected to the reason that I used to always keep searching for more and always buying more. It's like, this thing's making me feel really good. I want to get another one of it. But why can't you just feel good? Why can't you just be happy that you feel good? I put a note here that says I'm less likely to be glad I bought a thing if it is disposable or gets used up quickly, like the fancy soap from House of Glory is an example. I think maybe certain kinds of makeup could fall into this category. And then I also put a note here that says for makeup to make it into the top group, it has to be really special. So the Rowan purchase I made did make it into my favorites group, but none of the other makeup did. It's not like makeup can't make it into that top group for me. It's just that for a piece of makeup to end up being a true favorite, a true love, it has to be extraordinary. And that's a really good lesson for me going forward. That's something I'm going to carry with me into next year. 60 items felt like a lot. I remember when I filmed the first video, I was like, 60 is too many. Like 60 new things in my life is too many. 30 things still feels like a lot of things. It just feels like I have a small space. So when I think about suddenly my things swelling in number by 30, it's like, and that's what I did with my own money in the second half of the year. I did that to myself. So that feels like a lot. But I will say that with this bunch, I am much more able, or I'm much closer to being able to see the value of the $1,200 in the 30 things, especially when I focus my attention on the top group and I look at things like the jeans and the sweater and the ruffled blouse, which again would have been $550 if I had purchased it new. But it's just a little bit easier, again, for me to like see the value in my mind's eye when I look at my things. I'm not sure that it's easy for me to be like, yeah, this stuff is worth $1,200, right? Because it's just so much money, and it's just hard. It's hard to say that. It's hard to feel that, especially because there are some things that are very practical. There are some things on which I feel like I frittered away my budget. So it's kind of hard to really feel like, yeah, these 30 things are totally worth that $1,200. But I feel more like that with the purchases from the second half of the year than I did in the first half. In the first half, there was a little bit of a sense of like, wow, I see all of these 60 things listed out, but where did that money go? And in this half of the year, I'm like, okay, I see all of these things listed out, and I kind of see why they are worth the amount that I ended up spending on them. So that's an improvement to me. It still feels like a lot of money, and it motivates me once again even more to do a better job in the future of waiting, being patient, just holding out, consolidating, not frittering away my budget, and ultimately making choices that will cause almost everything I buy to end up in that top tier category. But this, what I've just discussed, is a vastly improved situation compared to the first half of the year. Everything that I bought, almost everything, is a favorite or a joy or a necessity. And that's kind of saying something, with the exception of that one lippy that I decluttered. But even that, I felt like it was relatively reasonable. No regrets. No massive list of things that I had decluttered, which the first half of the year, I had decluttered 5 items by the time I sat down to discuss the items. So that was 5 things I had decluttered and 7 things that I had regretted. So a full 12 items, that's more than a third. I regretted or decluttered 12 items that I had purchased in the first half of the year by the time I sat down to discuss everything I'd purchased. And that adds up to more than a third of the total number of items that I purchased in the second half of the year. And I didn't regret any of them, and I only decluttered one of them. So that's a vast improvement. Next year, before making a purchase with my budget, I would like to ask myself, which category is this item likely to end up in? Where is this item likely to land? Because there are definitely things that I purchased that I would have known if on the moment of purchasing, I could have told you they're going to be joys but not favorites. I could easily have told you that about almost everything in the joys category. I just wasn't really thinking in those terms. So I'm going to try to start thinking in those terms next year. But the main takeaway is this: progress has been made, and if you are budgeting, I strongly suggest sitting down and taking stock of what you've purchased and how much it's added up to and how you feel about your purchases periodically throughout the year. When you look at a list of 60 things, or in my case, if I'm looking at the whole year, 90 things, and you see how much of your budget you spent on them, how much it added up to, how much you frittered away, how many of them are true favorites, how many of them you actually regret buying, there is just no stronger lesson. There is no stronger motivation when it comes to being judicious about how one spends one's beauty budget. And that is it. Those are all of the things that I purchased in the second half of the year with my beauty budget. Those are the items ranked. And I was hoping to film a video kind of looking at the things I purchased in the first half of the year that were in the top category and the things I purchased in the second half of the year, and trying to figure out what my favorite things of the year were. But there isn't going to be time for me to film that video this year because I'm pre-filming this. I have a bunch of content pre-filmed because I'm going home for a week for Christmas and the week after Christmas. I think that by the time you see this video, I'll pretty much almost be getting on a plane to come back to LA. So this is being filmed a bit in advance and there just isn't any more time. I'm out of time to pre-film to get videos out like in December, so in 2019. But there's no rule that says that I can't make a retrospective video about the things I bought in 2019 in January of 2020. So if you'd like to see sort of a last video, maybe coming out with like my top 5 things that I purchased or my top 10, if you'd like to see a video like that, let me know in the comment section of this video. At this point, I could kind of take it or leave it. I would enjoy doing it, but I only want to do it if you guys are going to enjoy watching it. So do let me know about that, and do take good care of yourself, extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.